that she had. So her, Kelsey, and Aaliyah Boston, they had something special the second half of the season. And I just look at them as a young, hungry team. Our veteran president with Joanna Barner, Natasha, and me coming from winning programs who have been around the league for a long time and can help infuse something in that team that can take them far in the playoffs, bruh.
So Sydney Colson is obviously a player for the Indiana Fever. Someone signed to be Caitlin Clark's backup, and she is I think she's going to be a solid player. Genuinely, going to be a solid player. I don't think
championship experience is a whole new thing, and then coming off the bench, backing up Caitlin Clark, helping her with little things, just the knowledge that she's going to be able to give Caitlin Clark is going to be absolutely fantastic. But why did she leave the Aces? Well, if you see some of these stats and some of this information I'm going to put out, you can be like, you're going to understand why it was time for her to go.
It was only a matter of time before Sydney Colson got to rubbing her hands together like Birdman to tell it all, dog. And that's exactly what she did in a recent interview. Now, we know Sydney Colson came over to the Fever from the Las Vegas Aces. Now, about
Sydney reveal, I am very excited for this new opportunity with Indiana. I know several players and coaches from the Fever, and I trust what I know about them, Colson said. I'm excited to be a part of the vision that the staff has for this team, and I'm ready to get to work.
She said it's a much easier transition now they have a year under their belts together, which would be scary. I'll be interested to be up close and personal with Caitlin and see what it's like day to day. And yeah, like that's the thing where it's like this team goes where Caitlin goes. Like I think everyone kind of knows that, where it's like even last year with the team, when Caitlin didn't play well, they only beat the Dream.
For a ring, bro. It was just an exciting opportunity. My time with the Aces was wonderful, and we created history in a lot of ways. And they'll always be my Aces family, and I'll miss those fans and everything. But I felt God was leading me in another direction, and sometimes stuff can feel uncomfortable, but you not necessarily feeling like you're ready to take a step back. But I think that's usually when you need to. So that was what I needed to do. Now, that was Sydney Colson, man.
Could the Indiana Fever, a team that spent years in the WNBA's shadows, actually become champions in 2025? That's the question buzzing through the league right now. And trust me, it's not as crazy as it sounds. This isn't the same old Fever we're talking about. They've reloaded with some jaw-dropping signings, a coach who's been here before, and a young core ready to explode. Buckle up, because this story's wild, and it's only getting started. Let's rewind the clock to 2024, because the Fever's journey starts with a train wreck you couldn't script. 5 straight losses to kick off the season. 5. Imagine the vibe in that locker room. Fans booing, analysts snickering, and a roster that looked like it couldn't find the basket with a GPS. They dropped games to teams they should have beaten, got blown out by teams they couldn't touch, and stumbled through possessions like they were playing blindfolded. The defense was a revolving door, letting opponents waltz to the rim, while the offense sputtered, missed shots, turnovers, and a whole lot of, what are we even doing out here? It was grim. The Fever weren't just bad. They were embarrassing. Another lost season seemed locked in, and the 8-year playoff drought stretched on like a bad dream. But then, bam, something clicked. Call it grit, call it luck, call it Caitlin Clark deciding she'd had enough of losing. Mid-season, the Fever found their pulse. It started with a gritty win over the Los Angeles Sparks, a game where they scrapped and clawed their way back from a double-digit deficit. Clark was dishing dimes like a point guard possessed. Aaliyah Boston started bullying her way to the rim, and Kelsey Mitchell remembered she's one of the league's deadliest shooters. That one wasn't pretty, but it was a spark. Suddenly, they weren't just losing, they were competing. Then competing turned into winning. They knocked off the Chicago Sky, outran the Atlanta Dream, and even gave the mighty Connecticut Sun a scare. The stats tell the story. Clark finished her rookie year leading the league in assists, 8.4 per game, and three-pointers made 122, torching defenses with her range and vision. Boston, the 2022 number 1 pick, averaged 14.2 points and 8.8 rebounds, anchoring the interior with a quiet ferocity. Mitchell, the longest-tenured Fever player, dropped 19.2 points a night, silencing doubters who thought her prime was behind her. By season's end, they'd clawed their way to a 20-20 record, an even split that doesn't scream elite until you realize where they started. That turnaround wasn't just numbers. It was a vibe shift. The Fever went from a laughingstock to a team nobody wanted to see on their schedule. The playoffs? Yeah, they made it, snapping that 8-year drought like it was nothing. Sure, they got swept by the Sun in the first round, but even that felt like a stepping stone. They weren't ready to win it all yet, but they were damn sure ready to fight. Fans packed Gainbridge Fieldhouse, jerseys sold out, and the energy in Indy flipped from apathy to obsession. This wasn't a fluke season, it was a foundation. The Fever had woken up, shaken off the rust, and sent a message. We're here, and we're not going anywhere. Little did anyone know, 2024 was just the warm-up act. Momentum's great, but the Fever didn't stop at a feel-good season. They went shopping in the off-season, and holy hell, did they come back with some heavy hitters. 3 names jumped off the transaction wire: DeWanna Bonner, Natasha Howard, and Sydney Colson. These aren't role players or bench warmers. They're proven winners, each lugging a suitcase full of accolades, grit, and championship swagger. The front office didn't just tweak the roster, they rebuilt it into a contender overnight. Let's break down why these signings have the league shaking in its sneakers. First up, DeWanna Bonner. 6-time All-Star, 2-time champ, and a walking bucket. She spent years with the Connecticut Sun, averaging 16.7 points last season at age 37, proof she's still got plenty in the tank. Bonner's a 6-foot, 4 forward who can score from anywhere. Pull-up jumpers, corner threes, you name it. But it's not just her offense that's lethal, it's her finals experience. She's been to the mountaintop twice with the Phoenix Mercury and nearly got there again with the Sun. She knows what it takes to win in September. Ice in her veins, clutch shots, the works. For a Fever team that's been playoff-starved, Bonner's a mentor and a closer rolled into one. Then there's Natasha Howard, the defensive menace every contender dreams of. This woman's a former Defensive Player of the Year, 2019, and a 3-time champ, twice with Seattle, once with Minnesota. At 6'2", she's a Swiss Army knife. She can guard the perimeter, bang in the post, and switch onto anyone without blinking. Last year with the Dallas Wings, she averaged 18.2 points and 7.0 rebounds, plus a block and a steal per game. Her game's all about versatility. She'll sweat a shot, grab the board, and finish on the other end before you can blink. Pair her with Boston in the front court, and good luck scoring inside. Howard's not here to mess around. She's here to lock the door. And don't sleep on Sydney Colson, the wild card who ties it all together. She's fresh off 2 titles with the Aces, where she was more than just a bench spark. She was the locker room's heartbeat. Colson's a guard with quick hands, 1.2 steals per game, and a knack for big moments, but her real superpower is her vibe. She's the teammate who keeps everyone loose, cracking jokes on Twitter 1 minute and locking down a point guard the next. At 35, she's seen it all: playoff wars, dynasty runs, you name it. She ditched Vegas for Indy because she believes in this squad, and that says everything. Colson's the glue, the hype woman, and the clutch defender all in one. These 3 aren't just depth, they're a statement. Bonner brings scoring and poise, Howard adds toughness and defense, and Colson delivers culture and grit. Together, they mesh perfectly with the Fever's young core. Imagine Clark feeding Bonner for a dagger 3, or Howard cleaning up Boston's misses. This isn't a roster, it's a machine. The Fever didn't just stack the deck, they rigged the game. The league's been warned. Indy's not playing for second place anymore. If the veterans are the backbone, the Fever's young trio is the beating heart, and it's pounding loud enough to wake the dead. Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell aren't just the future. They're the now, a 3-headed monster that's already got opponents sweating. These aren't prospects waiting to bloom. Their stars ready to supernova, and with the new vets in town, they're about to go nuclear. Let's dissect why this core is the league's next nightmare. Caitlin Clark hit the WNBA like a meteor in 2024, and the crater's still smoking. The number 1 pick out of Iowa didn't just live up to the hype, she shattered it. She led the league with 8.4 assists per game, threading passes that made jaws drop, behind-the-back dimes, no-look lasers, you name it. Then there's her shooting, 122 threes, tops in the WNBA, with a range that stretches to the parking lot. She averaged 19.2 points, dropping 30-point games like it was casual Friday. Defenders tried doubling her, blitzing her, anything to slow her down didn't work. Clark's got that rare mix of vision, swagger, and a green light that never turns red. At 22, she's already the Fever's engine, and she's only getting started. Aaliyah Boston's the rock in the middle, a 6'5" center who plays bigger than her frame. Last season, she averaged 14.2 points and 8.8 rebounds, but those numbers don't capture her impact. She's a double-double machine, 16 of them in 2024, owning the paint with soft hands and a mean streak. She's not just grabbing boards, she's punishing anyone who dares crash the glass. On offense, she's got a baby hook that's automatic and a mid-range game that's sneaky good. Defensively, she's a wall, 1.3 blocks per game, plus the kind of positioning that shuts down driving lanes. Boston's only 23, but she's already a cornerstone. With Howard beside her, she's about to feast. Kelsey Mitchell's the veteran of the group at 29, but don't let that fool you. She's hitting her prime right now. She's been the Fever's go-to scorer for years, and 2024 was her loudest statement yet. 19.2 points per game, torching nets with a quick release and a knack for getting hot at the perfect time. She's a 5'8" guard who plays like she's 6'5", weaving through traffic and burying pull-ups in defenders' faces. Her 39.1% from 3 last year? Deadly. Mitchell's the quiet killer, the one who's been grinding through the lean years, waiting for a squad like this. Now she's got it, and she's ready to unload. Together, these three are a matchup nightmare. Clark's playmaking opens the floor, Boston clogs the paint, and Mitchell exploits every gap. Add Bonner's scoring, Howard's versatility, and Colson's chaos, and this isn't a team, it's a death squad. Clark's about to see better looks with vets drawing attention. Boston's rebounding gets a boost from Howard's blocks. Mitchell's scoring spikes with cleaner lanes. This trio's not just ready to explode, they're ready to conquer. The Fever's youth movement isn't coming. It's here, and it's terrifying. Every great team needs a general, and the Fever found theirs in Stephanie White. She's back in Indy after a decade away, and she's not messing around. White coached the Fever from 2015 to 16, taking them to the finals in her first year, a taste of glory that's fueled her ever since. She left for Vanderbilt, then the Connecticut Sun, but now she's home, armed with a system, a vision, and a roster that's begging for her touch. This isn't a nostalgia hire, it's a calculated move to turn chaos into a championship. Let's unpack how she's building a juggernaut. White's game plan is simple but brutal. Move the ball, lock down on defense, and play with an edge. Look at last season's turnaround. After that 0-5 start, she got the Fever humming. They went from stagnant to fluid, sharing the ball like it was a hot potato. Clark's assists spiked, Mitchell's catch-and-shoot threes soared, and Boston's pick-and-roll game became unstoppable. White's offense isn't about ISO heroes. It's about motion, cuts, and finding the best shot every time down the floor. Defensively, she flipped the script. More traps, better rotations, and a tenacity that wore teams out. By year's end, the Fever were top 5 in defensive rating over the final 20 games. Now, with this roster, White's licking her chops. She's got Clark running the show, dishing to Bonner and Mitchell on the wings while Boston and Howard dominate the interior. The pace is relentless. Think fast breaks and quick decisions, catching defenses flat-footed. On D, Howard's a roving disruptor. Bonner's length clogs passing lanes, and Colson's pesky enough to rattle any guard. White's drilling them in camp to play smart and fearless, pounding home the idea that every possession matters. This isn't a hope we're good approach. It's a blueprint for war. But it's not just X's and O's. White's a culture builder. She's been in these players' shoes, starring for the Fever as a player in the early 2000s. She gets the franchise's heartbeat, the fan base's hunger, the weight of snapping a decade of mediocrity. She's got Clark buying into teamwork over heroics, Boston embracing her role as a vocal leader, and the vets preaching accountability. Coulson's already calling her the real deal, and Bonner's praising her attention to detail. White's not promising a playoff berth, she's promising a fight for the trophy. The Fever aren't just contenders, they're her masterpiece in the making. The WNBA playoffs are a cakewalk, they're a meat grinder, and the Fever know it. The road to a title runs through a murderer's row, the Connecticut Sun's suffocating defense, the Las Vegas Aces' star power, the New York Liberty's depth, and a handful of other squads ready to spoil the party. This isn't a league where you sneak into the finals. You've got to earn it, bleed for it, and survive a gauntlet that's chewed up pretenders before. The Fever aren't wide-eyed rookies anymore, but 2025's postseason will test them like never before. Let's see how they're gearing up. Training camp's where it starts, and White's turning it into a boot camp. Day one's about chemistry. Clark hitting Bonner on backdoor cuts, Howard and Boston syncing up on pick and rolls, Coulson and Mitchell harassing guards in drills. White's pushing pace, demanding crisp passes and smart reads. She's got them running 5-on-5 until their legs scream, building stamina for those late-game battles. Defensively, it's all about toughness, closeouts, help rotations, and a no easy buckets mantra. The vets are setting the tone. Bonner's barking orders, Howard's swatting shots into the stands, and Coulson's talking trash to keep it lively. This isn't prep, it's survival training. The competition's brutal. The Sun swept them last year, and Alyssa Thomas is still a Fever killer, 13 points, 10 rebounds, and a whole lot of headaches per game. But Bonner and Howard flipped that script. They've played with Thomas, know her tendencies, and can match her intensity. The Aces? Aya Wilson's the league's best, 26.9 points last season, but their depth took a hit with Coulson gone and locker room drama simmering. The Liberty's Brianna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu are a lethal duo, but their bench isn't as deep as Indy's. Every matchup's a dogfight, and the Fever can't afford a single off night. White's preaching one word: consistency. One slip, a cold shooting night, a defensive lapse, and they're done. But one hot streak? A week where Clark's threes are falling, Boston's owning the glass, and the vets are clicking? They're unstoppable. The Fever aren't just prepping for the playoffs. They're plotting a deep run. Depth's their edge. They've got 6 starters worth of talent and a coach who's been to the finals. The league's a battlefield, but the Fever are arming up to take it by storm. The Fever aren't just making moves, they're making noise, and the league's rumor mill is spinning like a top. Words leaking out of Indy that this isn't a playoff or bust season, it's a title or bust mission. Analysts are tossing them into the dark horse conversation. Fans are dreaming of parades, and there's even chatter about one more blockbuster signing before the buzzer. This isn't quiet confidence, it's a roar building in the shadows. Let's stir the pot and see what's cooking. Start with the buzz. ESPN's got them as a top 5 contender, Bleacher Report's calling them sneaky dangerous, and Vegas odds are creeping up by the week.
Why?
That roster's too stacked to ignore. Clark's a superstar, Boston's a force, Mitchell's a sniper, and the vets bring a pedigree most teams can't touch. Then there's Sydney Coulson, dropping a mic in a recent interview. "This team's scary. I wouldn't want to play us." She left a dynasty in Vegas for this, and she's not shy about why. "I've won rings," she said. "I'm here to win more." That's not hype, that's a warning shot. Whispers are swirling about another move, too. The Fever's front office has cap space and a history of bold swings. Bonner, Howard, and Coulson didn't come cheap, but they've got room to wiggle. Could they snag another all-star? A sharpshooter to pair with Clark? A rim-protecting big to spell Boston? Names like Skylar Diggins-Smith or Tiffany Hayes have popped up in fan forums, though nothing's concrete. Imagine that, a late splash turning contender into favorite. Even without it, the chatter's real. This team's ceiling isn't just high, it's through the roof. The vibe's contagious. Fever season tickets are selling out faster than ever. Gainbridge Fieldhouse is buzzing, and players are feeding off it. Bonner's calling Indy home. Howard's hyping the young guns, and Clark's got that quiet smirk like she knows what's coming. Is this a one-year wonder, or the start of a dynasty? The rumors say the latter. Title or bust isn't just a goal, it's a promise. The Fever are the team everyone's whispering about, and they're loving the spotlight. The Fever's rise isn't happening in a vacuum. The rest of the WNBA's feeling the tremors, and they're not thrilled about it. This isn't just a cute comeback story. It's a power grab, and the league's heavyweights are on high alert. The Sun, Aces, Liberty, and every other contender just got a wake-up call. Indy's not here to play nice. They're here to disrupt everything. Let's see how their rivals are sweating this out. Take the Connecticut Sun. Last year, they swept the Fever in the playoffs, treating them like a speed bump on the way to the semis. Alyssa Thomas owned them. Jonquil Jones feasted inside, and the Suns' defense choked Indy's offense dry. But now, Bonner's on the other side, bringing her 16.7 points and finals know-how. Howard's in the paint, ready to body Jones and lock down Thomas. That sweeps ancient history. This matchup's a toss-up, and Connecticut's not laughing anymore. Their frontcourt edge is shrinking, and the Fever's depth might just flip the script. Over in Vegas, the Aces are wobbling, and the Fever's ascent isn't helping. Aya Wilson's still a monster. 26.9 points, 11.9 rebounds, MVP vibes. But the dynasty's got cracks. Coulson's exit stings. She was their spark plug, and the locker room's been messy since last season's finals loss. A'ja Wilson's admitted, "We've got stuff to figure out." And losing a champ like Coulson to a rising rival? That's salt in the wound. The Fever's young guns and vet grit could exploit Vegas's drama. Picture Clark outrunning their guards while Howard and Boston clog the paint. The Aces aren't invincible anymore, and Indy's ready to pounce. The New York Liberty? They're loaded, Stewart, Ionescu, Jonquil Jones, but the Fever's moves are a quiet threat. New York's bench isn't as deep, and their guards might struggle with Clark's speed and Coulson's peskiness. Across the league, teams are recalculating. The Chicago Sky's rebuild looks slower next to Indy's leap. The Seattle Storm's youth movement pales beside Clark and Boston. Every Fever win tightens the screws. The WNBA's balance of power is shifting, and they're the ones swinging the hammer. So, where does this leave us? The Indiana Fever have gone from punching bags to predators in a heartbeat. A 2024 season that started in flames ended in fireworks, setting the stage for an off-season that flipped the script. Bonner, Howard, and Coulson turned a playoff team into a contender. Clark, Boston, and Mitchell are ready to erupt, fueled by White's no-nonsense blueprint. The league's on notice, the rumors are flying, and the stakes are sky-high. But here's the million-dollar question. Can they actually pull it off? A deep playoff run's in reach, semis, maybe even finals. But a title? That's a gauntlet of Sun defense, Aces star power, and Liberty depth. The Fever have the talent. Clark's wizardry, Boston's dominance, Mitchell's heat checks, and vets who've been there. They've got the coach, with White's system and swagger. They've got the hunger, forged from years in the shadows. Yet the WNBA's a beast. One cold night, one bad break, and it's over. Flip that coin, though, one hot streak, one perfect game, and they're hoisting the trophy.